Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Why is Opendoor Better series. So, in this series, I go through all of the reasons why I think Opendoor is better and why I think Opendoor is going to win. Today, I'm going to go over reason number 5 as to why you should choose Opendoor and not the traditional system. And I think this is a very important reason, which is 51% by a very serious survey. I put the link out here. 51% of real estate agents are part-time, which means that you have a greater chance to get a part-time realtor, someone who has a full-time job elsewhere, than you are to get a pro best of the best of breed realtor. And of course, being a part-time realtor versus a full-time realtor, this is an issue for prospective buyers who are looking to buy a house, or prospective sellers who are looking to sell their house, because there's no easy way to pick a realtor. How do you pick a realtor? Well, it's hard. Most people actually end up choosing a realtor because they decided to view a home, say on Zillow. They click on a little Zillow form, and Zillow recommends a realtor. And then when you see the home, there's a representation agreement that you have to sign, probably after you see that first home. And if you want to see another home, you have to sign a representation agreement. And the question is, how do you find the best traditional agent in the real world? Right? Knowing that more than half of them are part-time. How do you find a good traditional agent? This is a big issue. It's hard to find a good agent. It's not easy, which is why I think most people will choose an app in the future, a consistent app that is the same all the time. Because choosing a good real estate agent is hard, especially if you're in a new part of town and you're moving away and you're new to the area, so you don't know. That's why many people end up choosing realtors that are their friends to do a transaction, but maybe part-time. So there's a very low barrier to entry to become a realtor, which is also something to understand here, which makes it very hard for a prospective home buyer or home seller to pick a realtor. And why is this hard to do? Why is it hard to find the best agents in the traditional process? Well, because sales agents are naturally charismatic. They are very charismatic people. That's why you go into sales, because you have a predisposition. That's why they go into sales. So when you're faced with a wall of charismatic options, how do you pick? It's very, very hard to pick, knowing that if you pick the wrong agent and you've signed a representation agreement, which is oftentimes the first step that they do once you contact a realtor, oftentimes you get a PDF and they ask you to sign that representation agreement. Then you can't change, you can't switch. And so actually, if you go to websites dedicated to realtors, for example, well, not exactly realtors for bigger pockets, but bigger pockets is one of the big websites in that field, the traditional real estate field. It's full of tips and tricks to look the part. You know, become a realtor quickly. And once you're a realtor, look the part. Teaches you way to sound good, way to look good, etc. There's like many ways to do it, way to cold call, to contact people. It's a sales profession. It is a sales profession. It's very, very tough to choose the best salesperson. It's very tough. So I respect the skill of a salesman, right? It's selling is hard. Selling is very hard. And so I respect that. I respect that at all. But unfortunately, for you as a prospective buyer, if you or seller, if you go for a traditional process, you're going to have a very hard time figuring out who's the best, and you can't get out because you've signed a representation agreement. So I think this is a major issue. And if you've bought homes with different realtors before, you can probably relate to what I say. I've had excellent realtors, and I can think of one that was not good. Not good, not good, not good at all. So it really depends on your luck. I would argue, or experience. But again, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're not going to have that experience to pick the right realtor. And this is where I think Opendoor comes in. Opendoor, and I titled this video "No More Part-Timers." Opendoor provides a baseline of service quality in the form of an app, which means that if you're just for the risk of picking the wrong agent, Opendoor is always going to win, because Opendoor, you are guaranteed a baseline of service quality, which is going to be better than most part-timers. It's going to be better than most part-timers because the team at Opendoor is working very hard on its app and on making an app that has a very, very high standard for the best line of service. Opendoor is consistent and the same everywhere. It's a standardized software application for your real estate that is the same everywhere. So you don't have to deal with idiosyncrasies from different sales agents. It's a big deal. The app does not have a lot of charisma. And some people will always prefer the human touch. They will always prefer the human touch. That's why restaurants still thrive. That's why there's lots of services that thrive from that human touch. I am not undermining that. And in every sector, and that's fine. But in certain sectors, I do believe the human touch can be a downside. Dealerships come to mind. Buying a car at a dealership, I think dealerships don't add value. I think buying a car from a dealership removes value. That's one of the big reasons of my thesis of investing in Tesla, because Tesla is all online. I think it's better because it's a big decision. You have to think long and hard about it, right? And so real estate may be one of these sectors. But let me just go through an analogy, a very simple analogy. Are you seeking a human experience? And I'm going to take the example of an elevator. Elevators, for decades, used to be operated by humans. If you watch old movies, that was a respectable job. An elevator operator. Actually, earlier versions were literally entirely operated by humans. That's the elevator experience. Did people need a human experience? Or did people decide to pick the human experience on the elevator once very early days of computerization, digitalization came around? And of course they didn't. Most of the time, they decided a self-serve option, i.e. press a button and do it yourself. That is what is happening in so many different professions, where people choose self-serve, and where companies are looking more and more and more like machines, where humans operate when there is an emergency. And humans build the machine and enhance the machine, but it is the customer that operates, dictates the machine. And I think this evolution is going to happen to real estate. I think this evolution is going to happen to driving. And it's going to happen in so many fields and so many industries. And Opendoor is, I think, having this disruption potential to the real estate world. And so again, Opendoor allows for the best digital experience at scale for everyone. The modern elevator is run by a machine, highly optimized, the same everywhere. Everybody knows how to use an elevator everywhere. There is a baseline service requirement that is very high for elevators. In fact, they have certifications and people come check them because there used to be a lot of issues with elevators. If you study, so it's a very interesting innovation. Anyways, this is not a video about elevators. They're operated by software, and this software operates at an extremely high baseline, and they used to be operated by humans. This is done, right? And in some cases, they are still operated by humans. But what happens if you have a problem? Humans are called to intervene and they fix the problem. Because the historic elevator was run by a highly diverse pool of humans with very different skills and expertise, a consistent baseline is very hard to enforce, right? And we see this issue, for example, in modern world with Uber, right? Why are self-driving robot taxis probably going to take over Uber? Because Uber and Lyft are having a very, very big issue of sustaining the baseline of performance because they can't control everybody walking for them. Same was true for taxis, you know. And so go back to this operator analogy. So if it's a software running the elevator, the only problems that you can have are highly technical problems that require human intervention, like you get stuck. Right? Most of the time, 99% of the time, or 99.999% of the time, you're not going to need any help from a human. The software is going to run the elevator smoothly. But if you don't have software, if you don't use software to run your elevator, and you actually use an operator to run your elevator, you always run the risk of having an elevator operator or Uber driver or a dealership salesperson. You always run the risk of having someone operating below the baseline. And I believe if you go through a traditional process of real estate, you run the risk of having a real estate agent operating below the baseline. And what would that look like? Making a mistake, being rude, being improperly trained, not showing up to help you with what you need to do. Could take very scary forms like assault, right? We've had scary examples of that in Uber and in other fields. They could not be strong enough to manually operate. There could be a series of below baseline human operation of businesses. This is why businesses are automating, and this is why I believe the real estate business will automate towards a platform, a consistent operating system for real estate. Opendoor is a modern, quasi-automated platform, highly optimized, the same everywhere. Humans step in when problems arise, or for things that computers can't do yet. But the firm is well on its way to automation. Listen to the conference calls. Look at the investor presentation. Automation drives higher returns and a more consistent service and a cheaper service. This is how I believe this business will be successful. It's a higher baseline, it's a lower cost, and because Opendoor is a customer-centric business, thanks to their lower cost, they are able to offer better and better and better deals to their customers because they have lower costs. Moving on. Unfortunately, the traditional process, because 51% of realtors per the survey I introduced earlier are part-time, the traditional process is full of examples of real estate sales agents operating below baseline. How many customers will take the risk if an alternative exists that guarantees you a consistent, highly rated experience? The risk of having an inexperienced realtor, the risk of having ethics violation, the risk of having a realtor who has so many clients that you actually mostly deal with assistants and not deal with the actual broker, right? There's so many risks. And the biggest risk of them all, and I'll conclude on this, the biggest risk of them all is that your agent not only may operate below baseline, but you signed a representation agreement, so you have to stay with an agent that may be operating below baseline. And more importantly, you're not able to go look at homes outside of a traditional process. So you can't access Opendoor exclusives because your agent is most likely going to tell you don't go look at exclusives, because if you do, you are the one who has to pay the commission. And it's not just exclusive, it could be for sale by owners' homes. Your agent may steer you away from FSBO homes because they would have to tell you, hey, you have to pay me 3%. So these are risks. These are risks going through a traditional process that you don't have going through Opendoor, because Opendoor is a self-serve software with a very, very high baseline. It's analogous to so much of what we see in business. This is why we do not have travel agents anymore. This is why we do not have bankers anymore. We do self-banking, right? This is why self-driving is such a big issue someday, because if the baseline of self-driving becomes high enough, we will not be driving anymore. We'll have software driving us, because software doesn't fail. I mean, it fails. It can fail, but it fails way less, and it's scalable, and it's inexpensive. So this is one of the big reasons why I believe in Opendoor. Opendoor is going to have a baseline, streamlined, standardized platform for the whole United States. And I think this company has a lot of potential because of that. Again, not investment advice and not a criticism of anybody who was part of a traditional process here. I'm just looking at the facts and looking at where things are headed. So thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And this is not investment advice, of course. And please follow me on Twitter if you can. I publish a lot of threads on there. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.